Got the pyramid behind him, the moon. Okay. What are these right here?
I want to say a zodiac.
Right. Zodiac. Then with the what? Constellations. Okay. Now look at this.
He got blood on his hand?
Got blood on his hands. And no wonder. Hasatan masquerades himself to what? Malach or messenger of light. With the blood on his hand, this picture of the blood on his hand, who is he trying to portray? Yahshua. But what name are people trusting in? Okay, now look at this. This is what Dr. Rivera said. I'm going to read it how it's supposed to be. When Noah and his family departed from the ark, Satan and his gang were waiting for them. Okay. Satan's fallen malachim became unclean spirits or devils or shadim. Alright, now look at this. Alright, remember the guy in his presentation said the flood didn't destroy them. So now what occurs? What we discussed last, talking about the Tower of Babel now. And these men of renown, these people wanted to make a name for themselves in the city of Shinar and built this Tower of Babel. And Yahweh came down to see what men were doing, and Yahweh did what? Confounded the languages there. Why? These guys were being defiant. Okay. Remember, the Nicolaitan doctrine. What did Yahshua say about this doctrine? He hated it. It deals with what? Idolatry, sexual immorality, and compromising. Alright, now let's read this. Same book. Cush had a son named Nimrod. We're going to discuss Nimrod. Alright, what you see around this, supposed to be Nimrod, what you see around him? The Zodiac. Okay, so, okay. Let me read the rest. Satan was delighted. This was his man. Nimrod will be responsible for sending untold millions to the pit, to Sheol. Okay. Say it again. Cush had a son named Nimrod, as the scripture says. We'll go to what I said, chapter 10, verse 8 and 9. Satan was delighted. This was his man. Nimrod will be responsible for sending untold millions into Sheol. And I show you the picture. And I show you the picture of the cover of the Angel of Light. And what did you notice around them? Zodiac. What does the Zodiac represent?
Different animals, creatures.
For what? This, that, that. What do the Zodiacs deal with?
The months.
For what?
Your birthday.
Your what?
Your zodiac.
For what?
For this particular idol.
What? You said it. I was just saying it for you to say it again. Your birthday. Say this again.
On your birthday, if you're born on this month, you this.
Right.
On these certain days.
And who brought this?
Nimrod.
And we read who deal with this. These beings
Right.
that
Brought this out.
that brought this down to Nimrod. So everybody who acknowledges their birthday on the Gregorian calendar at that, we're not getting to the birthday celebration yet, okay? But as far as right now, it doesn't look too, yeah, it doesn't look pleasant.
Yeah, it's not clean.
It's not clean. You're right, it's not clean. And we're not even talking about the birthday celebration yet. That's going to be the last thing we talk about. Why is it going to be the last thing we talk about? Because that's the most tightest subject dealing with a person. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do not take my what? Birthday away from what? From me. And the acts that people are following deal with who? Is it Yahweh or Nimrod? And where did he get this? Where did Nimrod get this from? These spiritual beings, the Hasatan deceived, that were standing in the presence of who? Yahweh, and they get kicked out. They have judgment coming up against them, and they conjure up these things to have the sons of men do what? But how
to be disobedient.
To absorb this,
yes,
and act on this stuff.
Right. By doing stuff that they do.
And the thing of it is this. These zodiacs name Greek and Roman idols. So now you say you're this zodiac, you're like this idol. And now look at this now. Look at this. Look at this now. Like Bill Snevlin said, this name, we'll get to it later. This certain name that people trust in is only an egregore. And what an egregore is something dealing with your mind that you develop from your mind. Like imaginary. But he said there's a spiritual being comes in. And what's the spiritual being doing? He's deceiving you to make you think that who you trust in is real. Now listen to what Yahweh said. Okay, we'll get back to Nimrod and Semiramis. Because we're going to break down what they did. Okay, Tehillim interpreted Psalms 115 again. Atas about him. Their idols are silver, zahab, and gold. So what are they saying? Their idols are silver and gold. What's that mean? What do they mean by that? It's made out of material, like you said, silver and gold. In other words, they do what? They build these things. That's what he's saying. Ma'aseh Yadaya Adam, the work of the hands of man. Hey, mouth lehem they have, Walayi Dabaru. They have mouth they have, but they do not speak. So, what we say? These guys go to the Vatican. All right. Now look at this. You see this? You see that in the courtyard of St. Peter's Square now. All right. And you see all these, they call them statues on top of this pillars, where they have these pillars and things shaped half like a crescent. Have these statues up there depicting saints, their idols. It's like that. So people put their trust in things like that, like they're going to get an answer from them things. But what did Yahweh say? They have mouths that what? Do not speak. Okay. Now, Ayanaim lahem walayarawu. Eyes they have, but cannot see. They cannot see. Aznaim lahem walay yismawu. Ears they have, but they cannot hear. Af lahem walay yarahun. Nose they have, but cannot smell. Yadahem, their hands, walayish mishum. They cannot feel. Yahweh just started from where? The head down, mouth, head down to the feet. Now look, Raglahem, their feet, walayakot yahalekun. They cannot walk. La yahwa big ranam. They cannot utter from their throat. And came mohem yahyaw asahem. Like them, they should become those who make them call asher batacha bahem. All who trust in them. So look, you got these idols and things. Okay, you got these idols and things that man put their trust in, and look, they can't do a thing for you. Now go to Tehillim 97. Now this is the title that they have. After the upheavals that will precede the Mashiach's coming, the world will recognize its folly, and Yahweh will reign supreme over the entire earth. So what's he saying about this? The stuff that the earth is doing is what?
Wrong.
Wrong is folly. And what are folk doing?
That's what they do. They worship
Idols.
things that man made.
Right. And it's what? It's folly. Yahweh saying these things can't do a thing. And look, we go to the Greek, and they use words that come from, they use titles that come from who? Zeus, Curios, Bacchus, Isis, and all them, and then emperors and things, and they can't do a thing for anybody. The healing idol. We didn't get to the English yet, so how's it looking so far? Since we started this Goyim, did it look up and up?
No.
Which side looked the up and up? Right. The opposite side was the up and up. Why was the opposite side the up and up?
This is straight Yahweh.
And you get to the Abrit, you're going to see who Yahweh and Yahshua is.
Yes.
You're going to know it's him. But when you're over here, this been describing the stuff we're talking about.
Right.
And these spiritual beings have an influence.
Right.
They, Nimrod and Semiramis just didn't make this up. The sons of men just didn't make this up. Where'd they get this stuff from? These spiritual beings that follow Hasatan came down here and did this stuff. After the flood didn't destroy them.
Right.
They were just waiting for Shem, Ham, and Yaphet to do what? Multiply. So that they could do what? Do it again. Continue. Alright, 97. Verse 7. 97 verse 7. Yah Basho called idolatrous. Humiliated will be all who worship or serve idols, pasel, idols. Hamit, halalim, wa'alalim, who pride themselves in worthless alalim. Okay, alalim, cover the G-O-D-S's. His the hawulo called alahim. Bow down to him, all you powers. Bow down to who? Yahweh, all you powers. Now let's get back. And continue reading. So people putting these trusts in these things. And this stuff is coming from Nimrod and his mother. Continue reading. This is the mighty hunter of the souls of men. Nimrod built a great city of Babylon. He and his wife secretly worked up an evil system to control humanity by the occult, politics, and a super counterfeit religion.
Where are you reading from?
This is from
Okay, still, okay.
the, okay. So what is he saying? Nimrod and his mother, wife, we'll continue with why I said mother, okay, conjured up this system. Yeah, this system of occultism, politics, and this counterfeit religion. That's what they did. Where? Where? The Tower of Babel. See, this is the thing. This is where people's going wrong with this. Okay? The Tower of Babel, Yahweh just didn't come down and confound them languages because he wanted to. Remember what occurred in the garden. Yahweh didn't come down and say these things because he wanted to.
Right, but something was going wrong.
Something went wrong. So now he comes to the Tower of Babel to confound the languages there. Why did Yahweh come down to confound the languages there? Because the junk that they were doing is what? Idolatry, sexual immorality, and compromising the what? The Nicolaitated doctrine. And what is involved? What do we see that was involved in that so far? We saw constellations.
Right.
So what is that saying? If you are in this constellation thing, zodiac thing,
Right.
remember the constellation was from a spiritual being that.
Right.
And everyone who pays attention or considers their zodiac sign, who is influencing you to be noticing this stuff? That spiritual being. Folks, read the newspaper and everything. I want to know my horoscope, my zodiac, and what my horoscope says for that day. We didn't get to the birthday celebration yet.
Who's like putting that in the stuff?
Right.
Who's printing it out every day?
Who is printing it out every day?
Where are you getting your info from?
Where are you getting your info from? So obviously, the individual who's writing this and printing these things up is getting it from what?
Spiritual being or...
We're getting ready to talk about channeling and things. It might not be today, but it's coming up. See, all this got to be covered. And so far, we're dealing with what?
Nicolaitated doctrine birthday.
Birthday. Isn't this what people...
Yeah. Gotta have your birthday.
Now look at this. Now we're on that subject. Look at the birthday celebration.
Yeah.
Don't folk do this in the assembly? The Torah of, or the teaching of birthday celebrations. We had already covered what? The zodiac. That's still part of the what?
The
birthday. Okay. Alright. Due to its belief that humans are born with original sin.
Wait a minute, say it again.
Due to its belief that humans are born with original sin, quotation, and the fact that early birthdays were tied to pagan goddesses, the Christian church considered birthday celebrations evil for the first few hundred years of its existence. So what did the early interpret, the ones in the early trust, what were they saying?
That birthdays were evil for a couple of 100 years.
For the first couple of 100 years.
So what happened?
This up here.
Okay, but this thing saying Christians though.
Right. Christians, why? Remember. They use that term to talk about who? Remember in the book of Acts, chapter 11? They were first called what in Antioch? And remember when the woman said, I know Mashiach has come, who is called?
Christ.
So, is that actual or was that put in? It's put in. It's put in there. They use Christian when it says first century or first couple hundred years. When you read documentation, they say Christian. You automatically should know that that's who? The Mashiach in his, and they are not called what? Christians. That should already, you should already know this. You see this? The first 100 years. You should already know this information. Why?
Because it's been put in. It's been.
Because you know. See, you know now.
Right.
See, you know now. You should already know that when you read documentation or hear documentation or the first century, they use the term Christian. You should already know they're talking about the right, and those who trust in the Mashiach, that they were not called Christians. This word was put there so that you would think that they were called Christians. To make everything be fine. But you know where the term Christianity come from. So you know, if you were to read this information, you know not to say Christian, but to say those in the trust. So another person, when you're explaining this to another person, you'll know what to tell them. See, the watered down will tell you what? In Christian, we're talking about Christian. We'll tell you they were called Christians. But you would say they were what? Not right. They were not called Christian. Because Christian comes from this. This is what they said. I'm reading what they said. You follow this? Okay. But we know, that's why this is italicized. Okay. Around the 4th century, they have here, Christians changed their mind and began to celebrate birthday of Jesus. Okay, we know that's Jesus. And look at that. As the holiday of Christmas. Now why were folk celebrating this? Who brought this thing in here around the 4th century?
Okay, now you're talking about Constantine.
That's right. Now you're talking about Constantine. Now you're talking about Constantine. And where did all this stuff derive from? Where did all this stuff come from? Nimrod. Where did Nimrod get this stuff from? These spiritual beings that were teaching the sons of men certain things. This new celebration was accepted into the church partly in hopes of recruiting those already celebrating the Roman holiday of Saturnalia. They worship Saturn. Now they call it Christmas. Okay. The Greeks offered moon-shaped cakes to Artemis as a form of tribute to the lunar goddess. To create the radiance of the moon and her perceived beauty, Greeks lit candles and put them on cakes for a glowing effect. So what's that saying in a nutshell? You celebrating holiday, you celebrating Christmas, birthday. What do they normally have?
Candles on the cake.
And what do they do to the candles? Well, what do they do first?
Well, they sing happy birthday.
Well, I'm not talking about singing, I'm talking about the candles. What do they do with the candles first? They light them up. And you know what? We don't even know why it's lit up. We're thinking the number of candles on the cake is for what? How many years you've been living, and these lighting them up for the years you've been living. But no, the reason why these candles are lit so that it's to make a lunar effect, because this is a moon idol celebration, which is Artemis, which is Ephesian Diana. Yes. Yes. So what is birthday celebration now?
Idol worship.
Idol worship. The Greeks most likely took the idea of birthday celebration from Mitzrayim. Since just like the celebration of the pharaohs as goddesses, the Greeks were celebrating their gods and goddesses. So, what's birthday celebration?
Idol worship to Artemis or Diana.
Okay, let me continue some more about Nimrod. So Nimrod, we just dealt with the zodiac and birthday observation and celebration. So when we honor that, look into these zodiacs and horoscopes and having birthday celebrations and lighting cakes, who are we depicting? Well, yeah.
Nimrod, he's fallen man.
Right. That's how all the way go to them. Then you had the Greeks, what the Greeks did. Don't folk do this in the services? Don't family members do this? This is the guy talking. Nimrod's wife was something else. Her name was Semiramis. Okay, she was gorgeous and completely sold out to Satan, one of the most evil women that ever lived. to really tie this new religion together, here's a sickie for you. Semiramis would later marry her son. Okay, let me read another one. It's from King of Kings. It's supposed to be depicting Yahshua. See, that's what they say. Those who stayed behind in the city of Babel came under the leadership of Satan's key man, Nimrod. This became Satan's headquarters, and it was the occult center of the world. Nimrod married Semiramis. After he died, Semiramis married her son, Tammuz, who was said to be Nimrod's reborn. So what are they saying about Tammuz? That he's Nimrod, reincarnated. And what is Tammuz's sign? The cross. Now, let's get into these idols, okay? Get into these idols. Now these idols are associated with holidays. Now let's look at this now. And why are they associated with holidays? There's so much information. There's so much. Well, this is why they're associated, these idols are associated with holidays, okay? Because of this reason. Now remember, all this was going on what time frame? From the beginning all the way up to now. Latin Vulgate. We didn't even get to the English yet. All this influence. All this now. And this goes all the way back when?
Well, all the way back to Miss Ryan.
To all the spiritual, from the time Satan and all his entourage was what? Cast out of Shemayim. All this. Is this a game?
No, it's not.
Okay, now let's talk about these holidays, and then that'll be it for today. Alright, we're talking about all these idols. Let's name them. Zeus, Mithras, Bacchus, Isis, Osiris, Baal, Bel, Aphrodite, Venus, then you have all the idols, dealing with zodiacs, they're all idols. You got Aton, Amun-Ra, you got Jupiter, you have, who else? Yeso, you have Yesa, same thing, Asclepios, you have, who else? And the list goes on. Okay, the list goes on. There's so many idols out there, we didn't even get to the English yet. Now, what's so important about all this that's talked about? What's so important about this? What's so important about this is all of this is in the services. Like what Yahweh told Yehezkiel. What did Yahweh say? Ben Adam, look at them. Look at them. Look at them. Look what they're doing in the house of Yahweh. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Did he say go out on that mountain, look what they're doing? Did he say look in that valley, look what they're doing? Did he say look at in there? No, he said in his house, look what they're doing. See, the world is already, this right here is close to what? When Yahshua said about the Nicolaitan doctrine, he wasn't talking about go to the prison and say this. Who did he tell to write these letters to? These assemblies that's caught up in this stuff. When he said Jezebel, he didn't talk about the prostitution house down the street. Yahshua was talking about who? The assembly. When he said teaching my people the doctrine dealing with Balaam and Balak, Yahshua wasn't talking about that place down the street, the club. He was talking about what? His own assembly. All this stuff right here is done where? All this is where? All this is where? Is this out in the street? In the assembly. This is where you find all this. It don't matter if you're in Yahshua's name or not, it's still in there. Every assembly that you heard Yahweh and Yahshua, that's Yahweh and Yahshua, but we're the closest to him. And you still see this going on. How much more those in the Lord Jesus Christ? A whole lot. Now why are these holidays involved with this? And remember, everything stems down to what man and what woman on this earth? Nimrod and Semiramis. And where did they get their influence from? That's right, these fallen beings. And where did these fallen beings come from? Why were they cast out? They were deceived by Hasatan. Why? Why were they deceived by Hasatan?
Because he wanted to be.
Right, and he wanted to match Yahweh, and Yahweh said not so. And what occurred? Micaiah fought him. Him and his army fought these beings, and they were cast out. Now they're on this earth wreaking havoc, and folk falling for this stuff. We fall for this. Why I say we? We were brought up in this. We defend this stuff. Parents, bring this out to a family member. This is not funny.
No, it's not.
This caused separation in the family.
That's right.
See, folk think other things. No, this. Because folk who say that they're separate from their family and still in Christianity, you still worship holidays. You still honor your birthday stuff. You still compromise with some things. You still say pagan words and stuff. You still say things pertaining to Curios and Domini. And when you're told who the truth is, you still say, oh yeah, that is. Yeah, that is.
You still turn it to the wrong.
Right. And whose influence is that? Hasatan. Anything that is not right, it's Hasatan. It comes from his influence. He's just using you as a vessel to do what? To sin. He already know he's going down to the pit.
Right.
He already know. He's going to try to get you to go down there with him. So he's going to try to cause you to do what? Sin. Fall. This is all in the what? This all in the assembly. See,
Yes.
this
is all in the assembly.
this is all in the assembly.
Taught wrong.
Taught wrong. There's some who's responsible for this.
The shepherds want to be responsible for that.
Yeah, a whole lot of shepherds.
If they should.
Remember what Yahweh said about you shepherds caused my sheep, you scattered my sheep? They were still called what? Shepherds. But the really hireling, they run when the wolf comes. Or they compromise when the wolf comes. That's a Nicolaitan doctrine. Now look at this. Janus, let's talk about the first one. First holiday. What's the first holiday? See, dealing with these holidays deal with the Gregorian calendar. That's the most important thing to talk about, to understand. This don't deal with the calendar of the feast days, because that's a separate time frame. Their time starts in the springtime, and it's documented in the scripture. It doesn't matter what version you read. Just look in the book of interpreted Exodus. This is going to be the first month of the year for you. The month of Abib. That's the springtime. You look this up on an encyclopedia or dictionary, whatever. It'll tell you that it's between our March and April. Where does our March and April come from? Rome. Where did Mars come from? Mars. Who is Mars? An idol. So what is our first month of the year? January. Why is it our first month of the year? Because we adopted it. Who do we adopt this from? The Romans. Where did the Romans get this influence from? These spiritual beings that came down through Nimrod and Semiramis. So what doctrine are we following? The doctrine of the Nicolaitans. Already with what? Observing what? The months. Janus. Well, how can we get out of this? Like Shaul was saying, the only one who could get us out of this is Yahshua. Honoring who he really is. Having compassion upon us, because we're all up in this stuff. We got to adhere to some of this when we go to work.
Yes.
We got to fill out paperwork and in the computer and see how things are set up. It's only Yahshua that's going to keep us and just show compassion upon our soul while we're on this earth dealing with this stuff. This is not funny. Because where is this stuff coming from? And folk are fighting for this. What? The Matrix is a system, Neo, and the system is our enemy. This system didn't come from man. Remember what, if that being legitimate, talking about this Shem Yatsai, talking about to these beings about going down here to get these women, they had to talk about this thing first. So it's already agreement in the interpreted heavenlies. Why? Because Hasatan is the what? The prince of the powers of the what? Of the air. They're up there. They're all over the place. Where you been at, Satan? I was walking where? To and fro on this earth. What's that mean? He got free reign all up and down this place. Him and his who? His messengers. That we interpret as what? A-N-G-E-L-S. Angels. That's the name of an idol. Alright, let's get to this. Let's get to the holiday so we can get the... We already talked about the birthday celebration. That's already dealt with. Let's talk about holidays. Okay. Janus, the first one, Janus. Janus discovered legends and myths and religious beliefs surrounding Janus, the Roman god of he who of opposites. He's of opposites, of exits and entrances, beginnings and endings, the guardian god of portals, portal gates. Okay, now, so what is he? He's a individual of opposites. He's a Roman idol. So where does he go back, this Janus? So where would he go back on this earth? We want to. He would go back to Nimrod. You're right. He would go back to Nimrod. Where was Nimrod? Where was Babel? It's in Iraq. It was in Iraq. In the plain of Shinar, as the scriptures say. That's in Iraq area. Okay, so when a person says Janus, who should you be thinking of right now? When a person says Janus, who should you should be thinking of right now?
You be thinking about January or
Nimrod.
Okay.
If I mention a male idol name, who should you be thinking of right now? Nimrod. Who was Nimrod? He was the son of who? Cush. So when I mention a male idol name, who should you automatically think of? Nimrod. He's the culprit that started all this stuff. And who did he get this influence from? These spiritual beings. And who these spiritual beings get this from? The one who deceived them up in Shemayim was Satan. Alright. He's of the opposites, of exits and entrances. So he guards these portals and gates. He's the one you got going through the door to get to wherever you're going. In Roman stuff. Okay. God moves to open up portals. X-Men, the Jumanji, anything the time capsule stuff. Okay. Alright, he was also guardian of the new year. So when's the new year in the Gregorian? January. Yeah. And when is January? What season is January? The winter season. Okay. The keeper of the calendar. So the calendar that the Gregorian go by, who would be the head of this calendar then? Yeah. Yeah. Right, but now who we talking about? Yeah, we're talking about Janus. Talking about Janus.
Okay.
Right, and then Janus is, who is Janus? Nimrod. Okay. You're right. Okay. Alright. From which the moon takes its name, which the month takes its name. So, the month of what?
January.
January takes the name of who? Where did Janus come from? Who? When I say Janus, who you automatically? Nimrod. And then you look at the zodiacs in Nimrod. Don't these zodiacs, each one is separated by months, different? So now, what does that tie in with? Alright, he was also depicted as having two faces and looks to the future and the past. Don't people do a New Year's resolution? Well, looks in the future and the past. Future and the past. Alright, I'm going to get back to that. We're going to stop on January. And the word janitor derives from the Latin word janitor, meaning doorkeeper, porter, and from January is the door. Entrance, gate.
You can't even come up with the name of the word.
Hey, he's the keeper of the door. Now look at this. Look at this. Looks in the future and the past. Okay. Now, let me read this just a little bit. Who was Janus? Janus was a Roman god of doors, choices, beginnings, and ending. He had two faces on his head. One facing forward, one facing backwards. They prayed to him for advice, especially in respect of new enterprises. I'll read that again. They, for one, what nationality is Janus dealing? What people is Janus dealing with? The Romans. Okay, the Romans. All right. And Janus is a two-headed idol. He looked forward and backwards. He looked in the future and the past. Okay. And they prayed to him for what? Advice. Okay. Especially in respect of new what? Enterprises. What does enterprises mean?
Your
Business or
corporation.
and what do normally enterprises give you? Money. Now, what do people do? And we're talking about those in the service. We ain't talking about the world here. What do folk do on this new year? They have this what? Watch night service.
Watch night service, yeah.
And what do they normally pray?
For prosperity. For the new year.
Especially in respect of new enterprises.
Yep.
Who's the Almighty of the new year? Janus. Where did Janus come from? Roman Empire. But when I say Janus, who do we go all the way back to? Nimrod. And Nimrod also dealt with the zodiac, time, then with the Kokabim, then people interpret stars. And folk go to watch night service. We're going to have to bless and look, when people do watch night service and things, what does it normally gear toward? They use the term, what? Blessing. Okay. They use the term new what? Enterprises. For riches. Do we need to be observing these things? No, we don't. Yahweh's days are not pagan days, not idolatrous days. Okay. Read this last thing, then we're done. Because this is so much. Okay. He also represented time, because he could see into the past with one face and into the future with the other. And that's all that needs to be said. and read this watch night service. Okay, and then that's it for today. Because there's so much. Is this looking anything lovely? This is tricked up. You're not fighting against the heretics. We are, but not like the Dominicans. What do you mean by that? We have another plan to get folk to fall. You see this? See, we have another plan to cause folk to go to the pit. See, we have another plan. A plan that what? They're not even going to what? See us doing this. And folk are going to do what? Fall for this. Hook, line, and sinker. And do what? Defend this. Folk defend this. They defend this system. Going to be found guilty. I made a statement earlier. I was trying to find a recording to where dealing with being innocent or guilty. I used the term for innocent, if I remember correctly, is to mean guilty. The person guilty, I used the term acquitted, but no, guilty. It has to come back to me what I was talking about. But the factor of it is this: if you're on Yahshua's side, walking in his ways, you're innocent. If you're walking against him, you're guilty. Okay, watch night service. Origin of watch night service. Watch night service is a late night Christian church service. Okay, we could say Christian. Okay, in many different Christian traditions, such as those of Baptists, Methodists, and Pentecostals, watch night services are held late on New Year's Eve and ends after midnight. Okay, now let me ask you this. When you read the book of Acts, you read the whole book of Acts? Okay, but have you read the majority of it?
I read some of it to tell me what you want to talk about.
Okay, it's in general. Okay, I read the whole thing of Acts a couple of times. And as what you read so far, did you hear anything concerning watch night service? No. Because look, the book of Acts is dealing with what? What does the book of Acts deal with in general?
Yahshua has done and Shaul is doing his ministry.
Okay, ministry. Ministry, because what? Yahshua said, you shall receive power after that the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon you. The Ruach HaKodesh came now. Right. Now it's time for them to do what? Work. Because Ma'aseh HaShalachim is the work of the Shalachim. The labor of the Shalachim. The acts of the Shalachim. Now it's time for them to go out there. Go out. Everybody, go out there. Now you filled with Yahshua and the Ruach HaKodesh. Now it's time to go out there and preach what? The word of Yahshua. So there's the acts they had to do the ministry. They're doing the ministry. Now, of what you read so far, did you hear of anything to where they gave any reference, particular to honoring, to do a watch night service?
No.
No. What occurred, what you read was, when these Abrit guys were trying to tell the Goyim to observe their days. And what are the Abrit? The feast days. Now, when we went over the feast days, did any of the feast days give any reference to a New Year's?
No.
What about a watch night service?
No.
No. And if it did, in which it don't, did it make mention of the month of January?
No.
So obviously, this has nothing to do with who? Yahshua. Nothing. Okay, now look at this. And this saying in many different Christian traditions. So can I use those in the trust? No, I say Christian. Why I say Christian? Because it belongs to that. Why I say that? Because Christianity, as we discussed before, is a mixture between the truth and sun worship. That is what is called what? The Nicolaitan doctrine influence. This provides the opportunity for the Christians to review the year that has passed and make confessions and then prepare for the year ahead by praying and resolving. The services often include singing, praying, exhorting, and preaching. Now, if I wanted to use the term as they said for enterprises, would that fall in there? All right. Now, Methodism, dealing with the Methodists. Following the lead of small Christian denomination called the Moravians in what is now the Czech Republic, that began having watch service in 1733. The founder of the Methodist Church, John Wesley, originated watch night service in 1740, sometimes calling them covenant renewal services. The services provided Methodist Christians with a godly alternative to times of drunken revelry such as Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Today, Methodist watch night service includes singing, spontaneous prayers, and testimonials, as well as scripture reading, and the liturgy for this service is found in the United Methodist Book of Worship. Now, so they said, dealing with Methodism, so that folk won't be dealing with the drunken stuff, okay, revelry, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve stuff. So in that, can you say that these guys observe these pagan days?
Yes.
I don't need to have no alternative. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it sounded like they was having this service so they wouldn't be involved with those parties and getting drunk with the holidays and things.
Right.
So they made up this
Alternative. Now look at this. If you don't pay no attention to these holidays, would you even have an alternative?
No.
No. They had these alternatives to keep people from doing
Right.
in the church. See, look, not folk out here,
Right.
but people in the church to keep the people in the church from. What does that sound like?
Trunk or treat.
Trunk or treat, hallelujah night, we'll be talking about. See, if you don't observe them, you don't have to worry about doing an alternative.
Right.
Okay. Presbyterianism. In the Church of Scotland, the watch night service is a popular ceremony marking the beginning of Christmas Day. Okay. African churches. Now listen to this. Watch night service has added significance in history in the African American community. I wonder how many African Americans know this information. In the United States. I'll read that again. Watch night service for African churches. That's, you know, us people, and if I want to use that term. Watch night service has added significance in history in the African American community in the United States. Since many slaves were said to have gathered in churches on New Year's Eve in 1862 to await news and confirmation of the enactment of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. So when did the why did African Americans observe this watch night service?
Waiting for the emancipation to be signed.
Waiting for the Emancipation Proclamation to be signed by Abraham Lincoln. And it was said the reason why Abraham Lincoln did this to support the Union. That's all he did this for. That's what they are saying. What was he saying? That if the Union wanted slavery, he would have backed it up. A political point of view. He was just being political, it looked like.
Right.
But the reason why the African American went to watch night service that time was
they're gonna be set free,
right.
to join the army.
Right.
So we either still gonna either be slave or be a soldier being killed.
Right. To defend against slavery, which you're being flim-flam anyway from the spiritual wickedness in the high places. Okay. So, if you don't observe this day, do you have to worry about an alternative? No. That's the point. And who is this day dedicated to? When I say watch night service, okay, let me go through this. When I say watch night service, what does that jump me to? Watch night service jumps me to what? New Year's Eve observance. When I look at New Year's Eve observance, I look at what month? January. When I look at January, what idol I look at? Janus. When I look at Janus, who can I go all the way back to? Nimrod. When I look at Nimrod, who can I say he got his influence from? These spiritual beings that fell. When I look at these spiritual beings that fell, who I look at? The one who deceived them Hasatan. And that's it for today. In the name of Yahshua.